Good morning. I'll get straight into it. Look, we're talking about Western Province, and I'm talking about the activities that Kina and Heritage are involved in that part of the country. I'll talk a little bit about Kina and its current position, Heritage Oil, our partner, and also APDL12 due to some of the issues we face there at the moment. Then I'll move on to PPL 437 and the recently issued PPL 676. Okay, Kina's been involved in PNG for about 10 years, and we had a lot of acreage down the southeast. They were all 100% operated where we operated. Post-COVID, we've relinquished all of the eastern play, partly because of issues related to complexity of the play, but also because of issues of inability to raise finance to underwrite exploration in PNG in that area. We've talked to multiple investors and so far had no interest in spite of our very close location to Elk Antelope and with some very nice lookalikes in front of it. So we've now focused on the more traditional play, which is the clastic sandstone play, close to Penyang, close to Elevala-Ketu. We now have two licences up here, PPL 676 and PPL 437, and we are in dispute at the moment over our smaller operatorship in PRL 21. Heritage Oil is a Qatari company. They've been our partner for almost 10 years here in PNG. They work in Ghana, Nigeria, and of course PNG. And they've done some excellent operating work, drilling wells up in the northern basin, PPL 337, operated some very cheap wells there, and have also acquired seismic down in PPL 437 in Western Province. Post-COVID, has that gone backwards? Yes. APDL 12, I don't want to dwell on this, but this has undermined and cast a shadow over our exploration activities. I've been involved with Elevala-Ketu for almost 25 years, and I've been an advocate for liquid stripping. In fact, I believe that could be producing the liquids right now, except of course we've now faced an issue over tenure with respect to that licence, and we're currently in court. Operator is handling that. We are encouraged by what happened on PDL 10, and we're certainly hopeful that something will develop on APDL 12 shortly. Now, Western Province, what are we talking about? One of the first things about Western Province, it's only 6 kilometres from the Australian border. Most people don't realise how close PNG is to Australia. And of course, we're talking about some major exploration targets located within Western Province. And we see that there's some very interesting lookalikes to the plays so far confirmed in Elevala-Ketu. But more recently, we've focused in on a thrust belt play and an uplifted basement block play very akin to Penyang in PPL 676. Now, these are the prospects and leads that we've identified. We had focused primarily on PPL 437 for a number of years, and Melissa was one of the highlighted prospects. More recently, we recognised that on its own it wasn't going to attract any investor or partner interest, so we applied for PPL 676, and with that, we've picked up prospects that extend to the north of Ketu, but more importantly, to the south-east of Penyang. We've got about 3,000 square kilometres of acreage. As you can see, it's sitting between proven discoveries. In fact, between some of the wettest condensate discoveries in PNG. The licence terms are reasonable, and we've got more than likely to acquire some seismic in years 3, 4 and 5 in PPL 437, and within PPL 676. We've got to do some initial studies and field work, and then some seismic there, and seismic will be the priority for those over the forthcoming couple of years. Why did we pick this acreage? Well, P'nyang's obviously an attractive target or analogue, but one of the things that did appeal to us is the Black River East, the two targets that had been highlighted by Chevron some 20 years ago. They sit north of Elevala and Ketu, where we had confirmed targets somewhat akin to the Elevala-Ketu discoveries. But we really liked the idea that there could be something sitting north of this low, climbing on the basement feature to the north of where Elevala-Ketu were, or are. That's the seismic through P'nyang. And the blue is the carbonate. Then you've got the yellow as the top of the reservoir, red as the basement. Data's not as good as the data we just looked at, that was 3D, but it's good enough that we can actually see, one, based on the well tie-in to P'nyang, we have a basement-involved structure with faults throwing down to the north, and there has been very recent uplift, but that uplift has not destabilised the P'nyang trap. It still contains 4.6 TCF of gas. That's very encouraging. So you can have very recent uplift and still retain your trapping integrity, as long as you've got those counter-regional faults. So we started looking at some of the older seismic. This seismic wasn't available when Chevron were looking at the area, but we did particularly like the fact that we could see some late-style structuring akin to P'nyang, not very far from P'nyang, and its basement involved. There is a thrust play to the north that we've called Parry, but we particularly like Black River East. By analogue, you could be putting anywhere of upwards of 3 TCF in Parry. We haven't really analysed the resource size of the Black River East prospect, but we think it's very attractive, and we really want to reprocess this data and then have a look at acquiring some seismic lines over the Black River East prospect. This is where Black River is located on the topographic map. There's an airstrip very close to where we need to acquire seismic. Nominally, we've shown a line in pink here that we'd like to acquire, about 30 kilometres. And we've been in discussion with a number of seismic contractors, both here and in Brisbane. And based on portable drilling and node acquisition, we believe the costs could get down to sub 2.5 million, which is very attractive for this part of the world. Now, whether the line will ultimately be as shown there, or whether we will want to extend it further to the west, that will depend on the reprocessing program that we want to undertake. Now, as we go over to the south, closer to the Elevala-Ketu discoveries, of course, the uncertainty that we face there does cast a fairly giant shadow over any prospects that we can highlight in that area. But we have spent a lot of money and time high-grading the Melissa prospect. It's fault-bounded. It's got counter-regional fault closure, and we can see certainly the potential, albeit high-risk potential, for something that looks like Elevala-Ketu that should be exposed to exactly the same gas or liquids-rich source that we have that charged Elevala and Ketu. That's 60 barrels per million cubic feet. And of course, at the moment, there's about 60 million barrels just sitting untapped in Elevala-Ketu. So we've matured that, We've been around the world talking to people about it, and we've talked to institutions here in Australia about our company. And I don't want to cast any gloom over exploration, but at the moment they're not getting a lot of attention for any number of reasons that I won't go into here. These are the analogues that we base the Melissa structure on, and you can see where Stanley is, the Stanley well slightly offset there. But the Melissa structure is a similar fault-bounded type feature. We can identify at Melissa presence of a very good seal, insulating the reservoir targets from the overlying carbonate with the sand sitting on basement, a sand sitting on basement and a source rock sitting immediately below the reservoir sequence. We like Melissa, but we need more time to attract farminees into this prospect. So, what are we looking at? Well, so far we've spent quite a lot of money just doing the reprocessing and acquiring 100 kilometres of seismic data over Melissa. We clearly have advertised the fact that there's equity available for drilling that. We have gone to market and we've identified a well cost of around 14.5 million in the event that we drilled at about the same time appraisal drilling happens at Stanley. But what we want to do prior to drilling is clearly confirm the presence of Black River and Parry prospects, Black River East and Parry prospects, north of Melissa. What's the future and what's the monetisation prospects? Well, I've been involved with Elevala Ketu for a long time. I've always advocated liquid stripping and sending the liquids down the fly. I believe ultimately that's where we will take the liquids if it's a small company development, and that will in turn encourage development of and drilling of Melissa, which sits between Elevala and Stanley. That's the talk. Thank you very much. I'm not hugely optimistic about the future for either Kina or exploration, but I have my fingers crossed.